for those beautiful readings. I have a friend whose name, before she was given a spiritual name, was named Martha. And anytime this story was mentioned, she would roll her eyes. It haunted her. Always, Martha, Martha. She had been scolded for eternity, and she could never live this story down. But then she got a spiritual name and could leave all that behind her. But really, Martha had a lot going for her. She recognized the Christ. She had the good karma to be alive and around this great master. She was a dedicated follower of Jesus. And she was close enough that she could have Jesus and his entourage in her home, feeding them. She had the energy to create a meal for all these people, put forth that much energy, and to be able to stand up to Jesus Christ and say, hey, my sister should be helping me in the kitchen. And she had the good grace to be silent when he said, Martha, Martha, there is one thing needful, and Mary has chosen that good part. She also had the good fortune to have a sister on the path. And if you remember, she also had a brother on the path, Lazarus. And she had the good karma to have Jesus raise her brother from the dead. This was a high soul. Martha was a high soul. But Jesus was trying to tell her, Martha, Martha, take the next step. Don't just be busy, crazy busy serving. Where is your mind? Where is your consciousness? Where is your heart? And that's the lesson for all of us. This age is unbelievably complex. I finally got a new phone. I've had hand-me-down phones all these years, trying not to have a phone. Not really wanting all that complexity. And I finally just decided, it's the 21st century. Get with it. You know, you need to be abreast of these things. So one tries. But so much of this life in the 21st century is like, if you've ever seen the entertainer who spins plates on sticks. You know, he gets one plate spinning on a stick, and then he gets 6 or 10, and then he's dashing here and dashing there with his hair on fire, trying to keep them all going without letting anything crash to the ground. And sometimes I feel like that is the way our life is. We're just dashing here and dashing there. But we need to remember the story of Master in the movie theater. He took his disciples to see the movie, and there's all this drama and tragedy and comedy and romance and all this complexity happening on the screen. And Master would tap them on the shoulder and say, that's on the screen, but look behind you at the beam of light. This is all light and shadow that's happening. It's coming from the divine. And that's what we need to educate ourselves, teach ourselves how to feel, how to experience this life. That yes, that's A lot of activity, a lot going on. Don't be attached to that. Pull back. Look at the beam. Feel God's presence animating all of this. Activity's purpose, and the more intense the better, is to help us to feel God's energy moving through us. Why work with attachment to the results? As the Gita says, don't look for the fruits of your labor. Just do the best that you can. That creates so much tension if we just keep thinking, I want this to happen, it's got to happen this way, the way I want it. Why live like that? Let it go. Feel God moving through you, doing the best that you can, and giving the results to Him. Why work with desire? It just creates tension and unhappiness. Work with freedom. Work with attunement. That's the purpose of activity. Just like Mary, I keep saying Mary, just like Martha, feel that energy flowing through. I bet her kitchen was bubbling. I bet she had vegetables chopped and she was sifting and dicing and splicing and working, and pots were boiling. She had energy. She was making it happen. We have to feel that energy and then ask the question, where is that energy coming from? It's God's energy that animates everything that we do. We had a beautiful work day in the temple gardens here yesterday that Russ organized so beautifully, and so much got done. And I was so touched that everybody who came worked with non-attachment, worked with joy, worked with freedom, worked with, okay, let's just make this beautiful for God. If we live in that attitude, if we live in that freedom, life is heaven on earth. And if we think of what's in it for me and why am I not more appreciated, I'm doing more than anybody around here. When we have that attitude, it hurts. There's just pain there. But when we work with the joy of being able to serve, life is bliss. So let us cultivate that attitude, and in everything that we do. Brother Lawrence, from many centuries ago, was a monk, and he did this practice of the presence of God. I think we probably have that book in the boutique. Practicing the presence of God. He said he got to the point where he could do the action of picking up a straw from the ground with the same devotion that he felt in evening prayers. And how do we develop that devotion? People ask us that in every country we have ever taught in. How do I get more devotion for God? How do I love God more? And the place I remind myself that we start is by being devoted, which means to put our concentration on that, to ask, to set that intention, to say, Lord, show me how to love you more, how to feel your presence more. Some people do simple reminders. They put a notification on their watch so that it rings on the hour, and that's to remind them, okay, where is your mind? Are you being Martha? Or are you being Mary right now? Remind yourself of God. Put something on the refrigerator or in your car dashboard, something to remind you, something in your purse that you pull out. Oh yeah, I should be doing all this activity with that consciousness. Where is my mind? Am I all about me and the selfies that I took today? Or and how many likes I got on Facebook? See, I know about that stuff. I don't do it, but I know about it. But where is our minds? What is your heart saying? Do you want to tune into the vastness of God consciousness, or do you want to narrow your heart down so that it's practically two-dimensional, practically flattened with the thought of self? Try this simple experiment this week. Don't think about yourself. Think about what you can give, what you can say to help another person, how you can be a channel for God. And watch every thought, watch every feeling, and try to refer it back to that vastness of bliss that is just a thought away. It's just a feeling away. And happy Mother's Day. Feel Divine Mother this week.
We'll sing a song in just a moment. I thought to just introduce this. This is also in honor of Mother's Day, Divine Mother's Day. Swamiji wrote words, English words, to a beautiful operatic duet that's very famous from the Pearl Fishers. And strangely, I say strangely because I find it strange that an opera would feature Divine Mother as one of the characters in it, but it actually does. It literally, truly does. Divine Mother appears in this opera in the form of a young woman, and and there's a whole elaborate story of two men falling in love with her and realizing that this love, which is so beautiful and pure, as they each feel it, would nevertheless divide them if they allowed it to. And so the song in the opera is about them vowing to each other that they will not let that love divide them, and that their friendship will remain strong and real. And then, of course, betrayals and intrigue and all sorts of commotion happen in the opera. But Swamiji captured the essence of that purity and beauty in this song, and he directed it specifically to Divine Mother. And it's just very beautiful, very sweet. He used to play this, the opera version of it, he would play at the all-day meditation at Christmas time. And so we often do that here as well. But the song is very sweet, and so I'll ask Chaitanya to come up and we'll sing this together. Yes, it's she, the Divine Mother, she who made the universe. Yes, it's she, the Divine Mother, ruler of every heart's desire. Love more ancient, bliss eternal, may our hearts soon be merged in thee. Yes, it's she, the Divine Mother, she who made the universe. Yes, it's she, the Divine Mother, ruler of every heart's desire. Love more ancient, bliss eternal, may our hearts soon be merged in thee. Love more ancient, bliss eternal, may our hearts soon be merged in thee. Thank you. Somehow that song captures a spirit of devotion to Divine Mother, and it's a little hard to put into words for me, but it captures the spirit of how you would sort of move from Martha consciousness to Mary consciousness, because Mary is in her heart singing that song. She is in awe of the Divine Mother. She's in awe of the presence of Christ there, and that awe brings her to stillness. And it's not that she couldn't also be using that stillness in the kitchen, it's that it just happens that she's there absorbed in what's happening in the room, and basically everything else goes away. Some weeks ago when Puru was here speaking about his book, The Physics of God, he talked about how we create our universe. We create the reality that we live in ourselves. And it doesn't mean that others around us don't have their reality of it, their own perception of it. But he talked about how when we do what Nirmala was describing, when we look back at the beam of light that's projecting onto the screen, and when we really focus on that, that is what becomes real for us. And it's not that the universe itself disappears, that is still playing, it's still going on in the background, but it's not for us. At that moment, we are entirely aware of God's presence. And so in the world that we live in, yes, we're called upon to serve and we're called upon to be active, but we're called upon to do it in balance with the inward and the outward. There's a famous story, at least in our world it's famous, and it's perhaps apocryphal, but a young devotee came to a master, and the master happened to be a king. So he was the unusual combination of a king and a saint both at the same time. And he challenged the boy to go through the castle, or the palace rather, and go into every room. And he was to carry a lamp filled with oil. The lamp was not lit, but it was filled to the very brim with oil. And his job was to go through and observe everything in the palace with this lamp and bring it back without spilling a drop. And he did that. He was gone for an hour, 2 hours, came back, and the king said, "Okay, good. Now tell me, what did you see?" And he started asking him questions. Well, he very quickly realized that the boy, yes, had physically walked through all the rooms in the castle, or in the palace, but he had not enjoyed, appreciated, tuned into all the elements that were there. So he got to do his homework a second time. And the king said, the saint said, go through and see everything, appreciate everything, tune into everything. and don't spill a drop. And so the boy did. Well, this time it took him 12 hours. And he made it back without spilling a drop. And this time the saint was able to ask him about anything in the entire palace, and the boy was able to answer him. And that's the juxtaposition of this balance, where we faithfully go through the steps, we go through the process, and we don't lose the peace. The oil is the peace. And we have to hold that. Otherwise, it'll just sort of go everywhere. And we end up with an empty lamp, which is not what's trying to happen. In honor of Mother's Day, I was thinking of the connection that I have with my own mother, and just remembering some of the things that I appreciate about her. We actually just saw her recently. In fact, it's interesting, Nirmala referring to getting a phone and sort of joining the 21st century. Well, my mom has a computer, and she's pretty savvy with the computer. At least, she's able to do what she wants to do and needs to do for the most part. The phone, on the other hand, more or less eludes her. And she does have a smartphone, although it's not of the absolutely highest IQ, but still, it's fairly smart. Unfortunately, it's not a brand that I know very well or a system that I know very well, and it was my job to help her get her Mother's Day present, which was a subscription to a book, audio book monthly thing. And we had to pass through password hell, is the way I would describe it, to password purgatory, to hopefully, I don't know if there is such a thing as password paradise, but at least password functionality, shall we say. And it was not so easy to do. It almost brought both of us to tears, actually. But we did make it. We did actually make it. But I have always appreciated that she is creative. In fact, one of the, certain things that your mom tells you as a little kid, they stick with you all your days. It's like little iconic phrases. And one of the things that she said more recently was, raising children is the most creative thing you can do. It takes incredible creativity to stay with the process. And reflecting on this, what comes to my mind is that Divine Mother, in whose place we all stand as channels in this world, decided that it wouldn't be fair to any of us to send us into this world without a mom, because it's like just would be really cruel or something. We all got here through a mom, whether we knew that mom very well, whether she died young or lived a long time, whatever. Nevertheless, we all got here through a human instrument, and we're blessed by that instrument to come into this world with energy and love and devotion. My mom also told me quite a few times that she seemed to appreciate this particular little story. I spent the first 3 weeks of my life in a hospital. My twin sister went home right away. She was big enough. I was not big enough. I think the deal we had in the womb was, look, you get all the oomphies. I'm getting out of here first, okay? That's how that's going to work out. So she was more than 5 pounds. I was less than 5 pounds. So I had to wait till I got to 5 pounds. Well, I never got to 5 pounds. My mom finally just came and scooped me. Give me that baby. I'm going home. I'm a nurse. I can take care of this kid. And she said, from the moment I got home, I never stopped eating. And I have the tummy to prove it. But, I could feel this present support. And I suppose, in a way, it's what every child requires to live. It's literally a requirement to live in this world. We have to have that love. And Swamiji spoke to this point many, many times during the years that we knew him, that this world needs that love. This world needs the support and the blessing and the nurturing. When I think of motherhood and what if you go to the core, what is it? It's not just children, because people can have children and not really be mothers or fathers. Yes, in a physical sense they are, but in the truest meaning of it, no, it's nurturing. It is loving nurturing. And I reflected more deeply, and what I realized is it's not just nurturing like with your arm twisted behind your back. I'm going to nurture this kid if it kills me. There's joy in the nurturing. There's this divine sense of, just as Nirmala was saying, that this is what God is sending through me into the world, channeling through me and through my own hands, however the job comes to me, whatever the situation may be. And moms have to deal with, to use baseball terminology, curveballs and knuckleballs and all kinds of strange things get thrown at them that, they weren't expecting. There's not I don't know, did anybody get a handbook? Motherhood, like this is how it's going to be, this is I don't know, I don't think so. I don't think the baby comes, carrying a little book that says, here, this is the care and feeding of me. Deal with it, read it, tune into it. No, it has to come from the heart. It has to come from that inner sense of presence and divine love. And so, for all of us, let us in this world learn to nurture the world that we live in. However we see that world, however we can express that in whatever it is that we're doing. Sometimes that nurturing comes under sort of great pressure. There's time constraints. There's other forces at play. Follow the peace that is at the core of the practice that Nirmala was talking about. In practicing the presence of Divine Mother, we can learn to express her consciousness. Express it whether we're sitting still in meditation. Express it whether we're very, very busy in activity. Find that place and it will stay with us all the time.